Hi everyone. Hope you all are good. We are here for grade 6 math. You can find all the lessons on ablestudents.com. You have to log in there using your email address and password as provided by the administrator. Then you have to select math from the subject tab. Scroll down to grade 6 math and then click on view all lessons. There you can find a list of the chapters. We're going to start with the chapter number 3. So please make sure you have your notebook and pencil so that you can note down the important examples and definitions as well. Here I'm on grade 6 math. We're going to start with the lesson. What is the greatest common factor of 19 and 5? List all the factors of each number. Find the largest number that appears in both the lists. 19 is a prime number. So 19 has only two factors. They are 19 and 1. Also, 5, you need to write down the factors of 5. 5 is also a prime number. So both the numbers have only one common factor, that is 1, right? Let's just start with the test questions. What is the greatest common factor of 5 and 9? Both 5 and 19 are the prime numbers, right? They only have two factors. They are the 1 and the number itself. So when either of the number is prime, right? Then the greatest common factor is always 1. What is the greatest common factor of 3 and 9? So list all the factors of 3 and 9, right? So the factors of 3 are 3 and 1. Now write down the factors of 9. 1, 3 and 9. So the greatest common factor is 3. So the correct option is 3. The correct option is 3. Option number 2 is the correct option. What is the greatest common factor of 14 and 18? The factors of 18 are 1 times 18 is 18, 2 times 9 is 18, and 3 times 6 is 18. Now write down the factors of 14. 1 times 14 is 14. Basically, they all the numbers, when you multiply them, they make the 18, right? And then 2 and 7 is 14. Look at the greatest common factor. So the only common factor here is 2. So the correct option is 2. The correct option is 2. Option number 1 is the correct option. What is the greatest common factor of 18 and 9? Basically, the greatest common factor is the number that can divide both the numbers evenly, right? So you can see 9 is the number that can divide both of them easily. 9 times 2 is 18 and 9 times 1 is 9. Let's just write down the factors of 18. That is 1 times 18 is 18, 2 times 9 is 18, 3 times 6 is 18. Then the factors of 9 are 1 times 9 is 9 and 3 times 3 is 9. So the greatest number is 9. See, I have already told you the greatest common factor is the number that can divide both numbers evenly. You know, when you divide 18 by 9, 9 times 2 is 18. When you divide 9 by 9, 9 times 1 is 9. The correct option is 9. Option number 2 is the correct option. What is the greatest common factor of 12 and 14? That is 2. 2 is the only number that can divide both 12 and 14. What is the greatest common factor of 8 and 16? That is 8. Option number 2 is the correct option. What is the greatest common factor of 15 and 4? So let's just write down the factors of 15 and factors of 4. Factors of 15 are 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. The factors of 4 are 1 and 4 and 2. So the only common number is 1, so the correct option is 1. The correct option is 1. Option number 3 is the correct option. What is the greatest common factor of 14 and 7? That is 7. Option number 3 is the correct option. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let me just move on to the next lesson. That is least common. What is the least common 12 of 4 and 2? You need to write down the multiples over here. The first thing you need to understand is multiples and factors are different, right? Factors are the number. Like for example, here we are given the multiples. Multiples, you can relate it with multiply, right? And factors, we need to write down the factors of 4. The factors of 4 are 1 and 4 and 2 because 2 times 2 is 4. See the list of the multiples 4, 8, 12, 16, and 4. 20. You need to write down the multiples of 4. So you multiply the different numbers by 4. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. And 4 times 5 is 20. But factors are the number that when multiply make this number again. 4 times 1 is 4. And 2 times 2 is 4. Got it? That is the difference between multiples and factors. So do not confuse between the multiples of factors. So when that is least common multiple, you need to write down the multiples of numbers. Multiplication tables they are. Relate the multiples with multiplication. So the multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. And the multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Let's just start with the test questions. What is the least common multiple of 4 and 2? That's the one we just did. So the multiples of 4 and 2 are 2. Oh, 4, sorry. The common multiple, the least common multiple is 4. Let's just start with what is the least common multiple of 4 and 12? So let's just write down the multiples of 4. The multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, like the table of 4 actually it is, right? 16, 20, 24, and so on. Now I'm going to write down the multiples of least means the smallest multiple of 12. 12 times 2 is 24. 12 times 3 is 36. 12 times 4 is 48. So the smallest common number between them is 12, right? So the correct option is 12. The correct option is 12. What is the least common multiple of 10 and 12? The multiples of 10 and 12. The multiples of 10 are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. Now write down the multiples of 12. 12 times 1 is 12, 2 is 24, 12 times 3 is 36, 12 times is 48, 12 times 5 is 60. So which is the least number? That is 60. So the least common multiple is 60. What is the least common multiple of 9 and 3? Let's just write down the multiples of 9 and 3. 9 times 1 is 9, 2 is 18, 3 is 27, 4 is 36. Now let's just write down the multiples of 3. 3 times 1 is 3, 2 is 6, 3 is 9, 4 is 12. So which is the least common multiple? So which is the correct option? 9 is the correct option. Option number 3 is the correct option. What is the least common multiple of 10 and 8? Let's just write down the multiples of 10 and then multiples of 8. No one is answering the questions. Why? 10 times 1 is 10, 10 times 2 is 20, 10 times 3 is 30, and 10 times 4 is 40. Now write down the multiples of 8. 8 times 1 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24, 8 times 4 is 32, very good, and 8 times 5 is 40, yes, 48 is. So the correct option is 40, very good. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let me just move on to next lesson. The next lesson is the next lesson is GCF and LCM word problems. Now here you can understand their difference better, right? I'm going to start with the test questions. Jackson is buying pens and pencils from the store. Pens come in packages of 8, but pencils are sold in the packages of 12. If Jackson wishes to purchase the same number of pens as pencils, what is the smallest number of pens that he can buy? You need to calculate the smallest number, right? So, whenever you're going to calculate the smallest number, you need to calculate least common multiple because the least and the smallest means the least number, right? So, relate these numbers, that would be the least common multiple. So, write down the multiples of 8 and the multiples of 12. So, the multiples of 8 are 8 times 1 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24. 12 times 1 is 12, 12 times 2 is 24, 12 times 3 is 36. So, which is the least common multiple? The correct option is 24. Option number 2 is the correct option. 24 it is. Over the next 2 days, Boone Employment Agency is interviewing clients who wish to find jobs. On the first day, the agency plans to interview clients in a group of 12. On the second day, the agency will interview clients in a group of 8. If the employment agency will interview the same number of clients on each day, what is the smallest number of clients that could be interviewed each day? Smallest number means you need to calculate the least number. The numbers are same 8 and 12. So we need to write down the multiples of 8 and 12. So the correct option is 24. Option number 2 is the correct option. Janelle is creating snack bowls out of walnuts and cashews. She has 10 walnuts and 20 cashews, and she wants each bowl to have an identical number of walnuts and cashews with no nuts left over. What is the greatest number of bowls Janelle can create? Greatest number you need to find. So you need to find the greatest common factor. Write down the factors of 10 and 20. 1 times 10 is 12, and 2 times 5 is 10. Now write down the factors of 20. 1 times 20, 4 times 5 is 20. So the greatest common factor is 10 times 2 is also 20. The greatest common factor is 10. So the correct option is 10 option number 3 is the correct option. How option 1? Can you please explain? At a event, school event, adults are seated in group of exactly 19 and children are seated in a group of exactly 13. If there are some numbers of adults as a children, what is the minimum number of adults attending? So 19 and 13, they both are the prime numbers. You need to calculate the minimum number, least common multiple. You need to calculate the numbers are 13 and 19. They both are the mm, prime numbers. 1 times 13 is 13, 1 times 9 is 19, right? They only have two factors. So when both the numbers are prime, how do you calculate the LCM? You have to multiply both the numbers. Grade 6 it is. We are working on the chapter number 3. We have covered the least common multiple and the greatest common factor today. Now we are working on the word problems of the LCM and GCF. So 19 times 13 is 247. If you focus on what I am talking about, you can understand what we are working on, but you focus on the chatting. Someone comes in the chat and tell you what we are working on. You have to listen to me actually. Taylor Stationery sells thank you cards in a pack of 7. and birthday cards in a pack of 16. Surprisingly, the store sold the same number of each type of card this month. What is the minimum number of each card type the store must have sold? So the numbers are 7 and 16. 7 is a prime number. You need to calculate the minimum number. You need to calculate the LCM. So 7 is a prime number. You simply have to multiply them. That is 112 option number. 2 is the correct option. Okay, the next one is Canny's apparel sells undershirts in pack of 14. The store's competitor Ben's Basics sells undershirts in pack of 10. If both stores sold the same number of undershirts yesterday, what is the smallest number of undershirts each could have sold? Smallest number 10 and 14. 78 is option number 2 is the correct option. If you are in grade 8, you must answer all the questions, but you're not answering any of them. Why? Because you already know all these things. So, where is the answers? We were working on grade 6 math chapter. We were working on is number theory. The lessons we have least common multiples now LCF and GCF word problems. So please make sure before the next session you can complete all the practice questions for the lessons you just did. That is your homework until next session. So if you need more help with any of the lessons, you can simply click on the live chat button. Tutors are available there to help you, or either you can write them down in the chat box. I'm here to answer all your questions and confusions if you have any. Any questions you can please ask if you have any. No questions? Okay, then that's all for